good evening, everyone. Welcome to Dr. Leah Schuman's masterclass over auditioning. My name is Olivia Brooks, and I work and help out in the continuing education department here at Vandercook College of Music, who's sponsoring this masterclass tonight. And Dr. Schuman is our trumpet professor, also our brass instructor for methods classes, and she's also the executive director of our One City program. And I'll read a little bit more about Dr. Schuman in a minute. But before we get started, I just wanted to encourage you all to turn your cameras on so Dr. Schuman can see you all. She's probably going to have you guys do some tips today, so she probably wants to see you and just say hi too. It's always great to see a face now that on Zoom, so thank you so much. Also, please keep yourself on mute throughout the masterclass. If you have questions, put them in the chat, and then I will be sure to pause Dr. Schuman at an appropriate time, and so that way she can get to all of your questions. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Leah Schuman. She holds a Doctorate of Musical Arts and a master's degree in trumpet performance and literature from the Easton School of Music, a graduate certificate in performance from the St. Petersburg State Conservatory in Russia, and a bachelor's degree in trumpet performance from Northwestern University. Dr. Schuman has worked with hundreds of teachers and students to refine and develop their work on brass instruments. Since 2018, Dr. Schuman has been the executive director of Vandercook's One City outreach program, providing free music instruction to underserved middle school students from south of downtown. In addition to teaching at Vandercook, Dr. Schuman is an active performer and clinician across the Chicagoland area and a former member of the St. Petersburg State Chamber Orchestra. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce you all to Dr. Schuman.
Hi, everyone. Can you give me a quick thumbs up? Can you hear me okay? If there's any problems hearing me, put them in the chat. I am infamously bad at monitoring the chat. I sort of get really into what I'm talking about and what I'm doing in our conversation, and I often forget to check the chat, but I think Ms. Brooks will help me. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, Ms. Brooks. I'm really not as fancy as all that. I'm just a trumpet player. And, I'm somebody who has taken many, many auditions. So I thought maybe I can share some of the things that I have learned along the way. And maybe some of you can share some of your insights and experiences as well. The title for this masterclass was how to maximize success and minimize stress. So I'm going to start with a very short answer to that. And the answer is preparation in one word. But I also think, and we'll talk a lot more about what that means, but I also think that part of successful auditions is really thinking about what that word success means. What is a successful audition? What is the goal? So an audition can be everything from, like, the lowest stakes audition would probably be chair placement in your ensemble at school. A notch up from that would be like ILMEA, All-State, a regional youth orchestra, or honor band of some sort. And then also, like, summer music camps would be about that level. The next highest level would probably be auditioning for college music programs, which I think is probably what a lot of you are getting ready to do. And then above that, there's, auditioning for graduate school and sort of semi-professional performing ensembles. And then the highest stakes level, or the highest preparation level, would be auditioning for the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, or some sort of a full-time professional performance setting. So of all those settings, I want you to quickly type in the chat, what do you think success in an audition would be? Just like it doesn't have to be perfect grammar, but just like a phrase or a short sentence. Why can't I view the chat? There. Okay, ready, set, go. Everybody type in the chat, like, what do you think is success on an audition? Is it winning first chair? Is it getting into the college of your dreams? Somebody says, no, you did your best. No voice crack. Getting a high chair. Knowing you tried. Getting into college. Your best tone. Doing the best you can. You guys are really so much more insightful than I was at your age. Feeling like you've done the best doing your best. Playing expressively and musically. I like that. Yeah, so I think you guys are on the right track here. Don't squeak. I like it. Just knowing you can do it. Um, I think there's kind of the external signs of success. You win whatever chair it is, or get admitted to whatever college it is that you want to go to. But I would really say that those should not be your idea of success, because there are so many variables that you can't control. You can't control how well the other people you're auditioning against play. You can't control the mood of the person that's listening to you. I know when I was in high school and we were auditioning for Allstate, like nobody wanted the slot right before lunch, right? Like you wanted the slot right after lunch, because if they're hungry and they're getting a little grumpy, they're just going to score you a little lower. There's nothing you can do about that. I feel like success on an audition is playing in a way that accurately represents your musicianship and your strengths and weaknesses on the instrument, because we all have strengths and weaknesses, not relative to one another, but relative to ourselves. So if you think of all the different areas of technique, by the way, I should say trumpet is my instrument. I don't know. Let me see a quick thumbs up. How many of you are trumpet players also? Is this mostly a trumpet group? Now let me see thumbs up. How many of you play something other, or sing or play something other than trumpet? Okay, so we're a real mix. So yeah, if you think of all the different strengths and weaknesses on any given instrument or voice, maybe you have a great high range, but your articulation is not as clear as you would want it to be. Or maybe you're really great at lyrical playing, but you struggle a little bit more with improvisation or sight reading. Maybe your rhythmic sense is really good, your intonation is not as strong. So whatever the strengths and weaknesses are relative to your own playing, you want to accurately, basically you want to play like yourself. And if you do that, I think it's a successful audition. So that's part of being successful, is just simply defining success in a way that is reasonable and achievable and doesn't really depend on all the variables that you can't control. So I said that the first thing in terms of maximizing success and minimizing stress is preparation. What preparation means and what the standard is going to be is going to depend a lot on what type of audition you're talking about. But I'm going to go through like 4 or 5 different aspects of preparation. And at any point, again, stop me and type things in the chat if you have questions, because I know you don't want to just hear me drone on and on and on. So let's talk about choosing repertoire. Some types of auditions, you get to choose what you play. Other types of auditions, for those of you from Illinois, ILMEA, you don't get to choose. We all play the same thing. But if it is an audition where you get to choose your repertoire, that is really, really a key important thing. So here's some tips for choosing the right piece to prepare, or pieces to prepare for an audition. Number 1, choose music that you enjoy playing, music that you connect with emotionally, music that you love. Because if it's a college audition or something you're going to be preparing for, you're going to be living with this music for a long time. And choosing a piece that you really enjoy playing is going to represent you the best, and it's going to make the preparation just so much more enjoyable than if you choose a piece that you think this is what they want you to play, but you actually really hate it. That's going to come through in your performance. So choose music that you love. Choose music that shows off your strengths. Again, think about what your strengths as a player are. What is the special thing that you bring to the table? Do you have a really beautiful tone in the mid range? Pick a piece that shows that off. Do you have really great, bold, high range fortissimo playing? Choose a piece that shows that off. What else? In terms of the level of difficulty, I think the most common mistake that I hear in college admissions auditions is that people choose repertoire that's too difficult. The level of difficulty is too high. I would say choose something that's a little bit challenging to you, but definitely not the hardest piece that you can play. I would say look for a piece where if you're well prepared, you can be successful performing it. You can have a musical, expressive performance even on your worst days. That's a good standard, because you don't know, that day that you're auditioning might be a great day. It might be a day where, I'm thinking of vocalists here or brass players, if you don't get a great night's sleep, you're fighting off a little cold, you may not be absolutely at your best. So you want to pick a piece that still will be comfortable to play. Also, the thing that college admissions auditions, the things that we're listening for the most are two things: fundamentals and expression. So fundamentals include tone production, how steady is your pulse, how accurate is your pitch, are you able to play well in tune? Those are all fundamentals. And then expression. I can't tell you how many times I've adjudicated like solo and ensemble contests, and like time after time after time, people come in and you can just see what's going on in their head. They're like, don't miss any notes, don't miss any notes. And it makes it really boring to listen to them. And when somebody comes in and just makes some music and shares a little bit of emotion and maybe makes themselves a little bit vulnerable in terms of expression and like showing a little piece of themselves, you're just like, thank you. Like, this is what music is for, right? Whether it's an audition or a concert or just you playing alone in the practice room, I'd say always just make it a habit to play as expressively as you can. It's more rewarding for you, and it will make you absolutely stand out in an audition setting. So choose a piece that allows you to play with solid fundamentals and play expressively. If you choose the hardest piece you can play, a lot of times it becomes difficult for us to judge your fundamentals. We can't tell that you have a good sense of pulse because you're struggling with the technique and it's making your pulse a little bit unsteady. Or something that has like extreme high range, maybe you're pinching and you start to sound a little out of tune, makes it hard for us to tell if you have a good sense of pitch. So a little bit easier piece is a good idea. Question for you guys. This is the last thing I'll say about choosing repertoire. Who are some people that can help you choose repertoire? Let's type this in the chat. Who can you ask if you're not sure what to prepare for an audition and you need some help with that? Band director, choir teacher, private lesson teacher, your director, band director, music teacher. Yep. Some of them are going by so fast they're hard to see. Yep, any director. Parents, good. If you're lucky enough to have musical parents, for sure. Yeah, these are all good things to do. If you have a private lesson teacher, by all means, that's probably the best person to help you choose a piece. But realistically, not everybody has a private lesson teacher for a myriad of reasons, a lot of reasons that it can be hard. So definitely talk to your ensemble director at school. If there's a student who maybe came a few years before you, who's playing you really admired and you liked the way they sounded, maybe you heard them play a specific piece that you liked, maybe ask them for recommendations. How many of you, let me just see a show of hands, how many of you, or you could do the little, what are they called? Like the little thumbs up things, reactions. You can either show me a thumbs up or you can like do the little reaction. How many of you are considering auditioning at Vandercook for college? I see a few. 1, 2, 3. So if you are thinking about auditioning at Vandercook, wherever you live, you absolutely should contact the applied teacher. So if you're going to audition as a trumpet student at Vandercook, I am so happy to meet with you prior to your audition. If you're in the Chicago area, you can come to campus. We'll sit down. I will answer all your questions about what it would be like to be a student, whether the piece you're working on is a good one. If you're just like, I don't know what to play, I will pull out some pieces and say, let's see how you sound on this. Let's see if you like that. But also just questions in general about the admissions process. And I believe that all of the private lesson teachers at Vandercook, we call that applied study in college, I think we would all be more than happy to do that. If you're far away, we can do it over Zoom. It's not quite as good. I much prefer in person, but still, I just met last week with a student from Texas, and we spent an hour on Zoom, and she asked me all her questions and played her piece for me. And so by all means, don't be shy about asking Vandercook's teachers to help you prior to the audition. We can give you some good feedback. Any other questions? I'm going to open up the chat. Any other questions about repertoire before I go on to a different area? Nope. Okay. Next. And by the way, all these things at the first section of what I'm talking about, these would be for any audition. It could be a recorded audition, a live over Zoom type audition, or live in-person audition. And then we'll talk a little bit about recorded auditions and live auditions, but this is for everything. Okay, if any of my trumpet students are here, they're gonna roll their eyes because they've heard me say this so often. The best piece of advice I can give you is this: over-prepare and prepare early. So why do I say over-prepare? Because there is no such thing. Right? Whatever you think is enough preparation, do a little bit more. And I don't say that to stress you out. On the contrary, I say that because the better prepared you are, the more confident you're going to feel and the more relaxed you're going to feel. I would say the best antidote to performance anxiety is preparation. Let's see. In a perfect world, I would say if you could start preparing for an audition 4 to 6 months in advance, that would be a perfect world. And certainly if you're auditioning for the Chicago Symphony, you got to do that. Realistically, if it's a chair audition or something like that, chair placement, you're not even going to have the music that far in advance. You might only have it a few days or a week in advance. But for college auditions, if you can start 4 to 6 months in advance, I think that will give you time to maybe decide, oh, the first piece I chose maybe isn't the one I want to do. Maybe I want to try something different. If your time is much more limited, which usually it is than that, I would say stay calm and make a plan, sort of a plan of attack. I like to keep a notebook or a journal nearby and just sort of figure out if I have, 1 week to learn a piece that's 120 measures long. Well, I'm going to divide it into maybe 6 sections that are 20 measures each and really just focus on those 20 measures and trust the process. Tomorrow I'll learn the next 20. And then maybe the last day, I'll start, I'll put them all together. So make a plan of attack. Don't let yourself be overwhelmed. Just figure out how to divide up all the things that you need to learn over the amount of time that you have. Looking at my notes here, what else? Obviously, if you're doing that, look for written out repeats. Sometimes there are repeats in large chunks of music that repeat that don't have a repeat sign. So that makes your job a lot easier, obviously. Try to sort of, if your time is limited or even if it isn't, try to sort of maintain, I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but I would say a sort of objective, distanced perspective on the process of preparing. I don't mean the music. I don't mean that you should be distanced emotionally from the music, but I mean in terms of actually planning out your preparation and executing it. Almost think of it like it's another person. Almost think of it like your friend asks you, I've got this audition in 3 weeks and I'm really nervous. How should I prepare? What would you tell them? You'd probably be a lot more objective than you are with yourself. Sometimes with ourselves, there's a lot of emotion, a lot of sort of tying our success on our instrument or our voice to our self-worth. I'm going to tell you right now, you are all worthy people. You are worthy of love and respect, regardless of how you play your instrument, okay? And if you tie it to that, that's just not going in a good direction. You are going to have bad auditions, and it's okay. You're going to have bad performances. You're going to have bad practice sessions, and those all are part of the process, and we learn from those just like we learn from the good ones. So really try to just sort of be a problem solver and say, okay, how can I get from point A, where I am now, to the point I want to be at when I audition, and then just follow through on it, rather than like having a lot of judgment of yourself, or, you know, sort of beating your head against the wall and all those emotional things. If you can just put the emotion into your playing, not into your planning of preparation, if that makes sense. Study recordings. I have very mixed feelings about how easily accessible recordings are to you and your generation and all of us today. And what I mean is, anyone can post on YouTube, which is a beautiful thing. Like, you can, you know, a 7th grader can share with their grandparents, and that's great. But a 7th grader may not be the model that you want to listen to for your college auditions. No, nothing against any 7th graders that are here. But so look for high quality professional recordings. Listen to the best of the best, because that is also at your fingertips. You can definitely just poke around and see what you find. I really prefer something like Apple Music or iTunes to YouTube as a starting point, because there's a filter, right? Not everybody can get their recording on iTunes. So you're going to be starting with a little bit more selective recordings. But also, again, ask your private lesson teacher, ask your band director. I really believe that if you can spend almost 50-50, half your time studying recordings and half your time playing your instrument, I think that's about right. Most of us do way less listening than that. And by the way, you know, think about the difference between active and passive listening. So I'm not talking about just sort of having the music going in the background while you're doing something else. I'm talking about sitting there with your sheet music in front of you, watching the part go by, maybe doing some fingerings, and listening very carefully and in a very focused way to a recording. That is a great part of your preparation. Okay, study recordings. I said that. What's next? Oh, for most auditions, there is some form of scales involved. So I'm going to sort of aim this section towards college auditions, but if you want me to address ILMEA scales or any other type of auditions, just put that in the chat. Basically, all I want to say is make sure that scales are part of your daily routine. And if you have some degree of choice about what scales to play, think about it ahead of time. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a college audition and we say, well, what scales do you have prepared? And the students sort of like doesn't know how to answer that. Now, I know that's not because they haven't prepared. It's because they're a little bit nervous and they haven't thought about how to answer that question. Be ready to answer that question confidently and say, you know what? I'm really solid on my major scales up to 4 accidentals or 3 accidentals. Or I know all my major scales and some of my minor scales. Or I know all 12 of my major and minor scales. Or I only know a concert B flat scale, but I know it really well. Just like think about it ahead of time so that before you get there, you'll have an answer to that question. And when I hear scales in an audition, I really want to hear them slow. I want to hear half notes slurred. I'm looking at scales as 2 things. One is a chance for you to get comfortable in the room. Honestly, when I start an audition with scales, I want to give you a chance to play something in the room with us, see what it sounds like, and be like, whew, yeah, this is okay. I can do this. And then we get to your major piece. I am not a big fan of testing notes at the beginning of your audition, especially testing notes with anything but your best possible sound. When I walk into an audition, rather than playing something like with my bell pointing down with a really little puny sound, I want the first notes I play to impart to them, like I said, what I'm capable of musically. I wanted to show my fundamentals and show my expression. Here's the way I would start an audition, unless I mess up, and then forget about it. Right? that says, I know what I want to say. I want to share a little bit of this bold, exciting character with you and bring you on a journey. So often people come in and they're like, like that, just to find their note. You don't need to test the note. You've played it so many times. I would say come in and make the first sound a musical sound. If you're doing a scale, we don't want to hear, right? We want to hear, we want to hear big, beautiful, confident, resonant tone. And of course, I have absolutely no idea what any of that sounded like on your end. And I apologize if the audio quality was like full of static and garbled and all that. But what I'm trying to say is come in and play your first sounds like you. Play with your best tone so that even your warm-up notes or your scale is representative of how you play. Let me glance at the chats. Any questions so far? Oh, thank you. Memorizing skills, yes. For chair auditions, do you have advice for scale memorization for county band and such? Yes. Again, as far as memorizing scales go, I would recommend like sort of a very step-by-step incremental process. Don't try and memorize all 12 at once. How many of you are most of you familiar with the circle of fifths? If not, maybe Google it and pull it up. The circle of fifths is a way of organizing all 12 key signatures in order. So it's like no sharps and flats, 1 sharp, 2 sharps, 3 sharps, 4 sharps, right around until then fewer and fewer flats until you get back to nothing. And I think that's a great order to learn your scales in because it's kind of easy. You're always just adding one more. So, most of us learn concert B flat first. For me as a trumpet player, that's C. So I'm right at the top of the circle of fifths, and for our clarinet players too. And then, just add either direction, add 1 flat and memorize that one. I would say each time you practice it, play it, well, at the beginning, maybe 3 times with the music in front of you, and then flip it over and try it without. And then if you have to flip back and see a couple of notes, and then flip it back over. And then the next day, maybe play it 2 times with the sheet music in front of you, flip it over and see if you can play it without the sheet music in front of you. And then eventually just look at it once with the sheet music and then flip it over. And then before you know it, I bet within a week, you'll be able to not look at the sheet music at all. Just pick up your instrument or your voice and do the scale. And then don't forget to review the ones that you already know, because you can forget them. That definitely happens. And then just add them in a very step-by-step way. So if you need to know all 12 of them for an audition that's coming up, if you can start, 12 weeks, that would be 3 months, right? And just learn one every day. That would be awesome. Also, play what you do know and what you are able to play your best, and don't stress out too much about the things you don't know. You guys have so many years of great music making in front of you. You don't have to know everything right now. So learn what you can in a calm, ordered way. Do that thing of playing it from reading the notes in front of you a few times and then flip it over and see if you can remember it. Looks like we got a couple more in the chat. Anxiety. Let me address singers first. I'm probably not the person to answer that question. I'm sure that at Vandercook, they would allow you to get a pitch from the piano, but I don't know anything about ILMEA voice. I only really know about instrumental, I actually really only know about the band instruments. But whoever that was that asked about voice, definitely follow up with any of us via email. You can email me and I'll forward it to our voice teachers and have them get back to you, or our choir director and have him get back to you, or our admissions folks, or Olivia Brooks, who introduced me. If you email her at that's Olivia with an A Brooks@vandercook.edu, she can put you in touch with a vocalist who can tell you how that works for whatever particular audition you're preparing for. At Vandercook, I'm sure we would allow you to get a pitch from the piano, if not sit at the piano while you're doing them. Anxiety. That is a whole masterclass in and of itself. So I don't want to take too much time. Unless, let me see a thumbs up. How many of you want me to spend a good chunk of time talking about performance anxiety? Is that helpful to a lot of you? Yeah. So here's what I would say about performance anxiety. Everything gets better with practice, right? If my triple tonguing is not clear, I do it every day. I practice my triple tonguing a lot. If my high range is not strong, I practice my high range. The problem with performance anxiety is a lot of times when we experience it, we don't want to perform because we've had that negative experience before. So if you can create some kind of low stakes, very warm, welcoming performances for yourself to build up some positive experiences, that would be a great idea. One way to do that is if you have a little group of friends who are also musicians, maybe once a week or once every couple of weeks, you guys all perform for each other. And it doesn't have to be something crazy hard. It can just be a short little excerpt that you get up and you play and everybody claps and you bow and you do that. Sometimes if you attend any type of, church or synagogue or mosque or anything like that, sometimes playing there can be a very low stakes, like comfortable place to play. And that's like an actual audience with people you don't know, but they're usually just happy that they didn't have to pay a musician, that you're coming in and doing it for free. Also, you can do sort of like a mock audition. So if you have, say, ILMEA coming up, you can go through the whole process for a friend or your band director or your parents or your not if your siblings are mine, maybe that's like mine, that's not a good idea. My brother's mean. Play it for people in relatively low stakes settings. Also perform for people music that you feel really good about, you're really comfortable playing. Also remember, there's a very fine line between anxiety and excitement. And if you can learn to sort of, I don't know what the word is, but like just stay right on that line. I much prefer like that, the thrill of live performance to like making a recording where I can do it over and over and over. There's something about that moment, especially in ensembles, when everybody is on and like they didn't have to be, like we could have crashed and burned because it's a live performance. Anything could happen. Like, how many of you have experienced that thing that happens that's like so close to anxiety, but it's really positive? It's like something, that little bit of adrenaline and excitement can make it absolutely magical. So I think if you can sort of channel that, I would say it's not a good idea to like try and tamp down the anxiety, like don't be anxious, don't be anxious, don't be nervous. That's like me saying, don't think of a pink elephant. Like, what did you just think of? You just thought of a pink elephant, right? That's how our brains work. So don't be nervous isn't a good message to send yourself. But if you can try and ride that excitement and that adrenaline and let it, be more on the excitement side than the anxiety side. A couple of other things that I would suggest, and this might sound contradictory to what I just said, but I am a huge fan of just deep, slow breathing. And that is not the same as saying like you're not going to feel excitement. You'll still be excited in the moment. But I have a couple of breathing exercises I can show you if you're curious, and I'm completely off my outline now. But one of them, it's so simple, but it really works. It's just, I set a pulse at about 60 or so beats per minute. I do 4 counts in, and what I think of is breathing in calm and then breathing out anything that does not serve you, anything that no longer serves you. So in this case, that would be worry or anxiety. In other situations, it might be anger right? It might be, I don't know, anything that doesn't serve you anymore. So let's actually, if you don't mind, let's actually try it. So sit up straight and tall. Try to think of sort of like a puppet where you've got like a string coming up here and then everything else is just kind of hanging down in a comfortable way. And I'm going to count, you can close your eyes if you want. I'm going to count 4 counts. We're going to breathe in calm for 4 and then breathe out worry or breathe out anger or whatever. Let's try it. Ready, go. In, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4. And sometimes if I actually like picture the letters of the word calm, like I see the word calm while I'm breathing in, and do that about 10 times, I find that that really changes my mindset quite a bit. And I know it sounds really, really simple, but it actually works. That's why people have been doing it for thousands of years, right? This sort of meditation. So that's another possibility for addressing performance anxiety. I should probably get back to my outline here. But I will leave you with this. Any of you who would like a little more information about performance anxiety, by all means, I'll give you my email at the end and email me about that. We can have a conversation. If you're local, maybe you can come in or I can come out to your school and say, do a little presentation. Because I believe last year's online masterclass, I believe it was last year, the whole thing was on performance anxiety. So it's a topic that interests me a lot. Let's see, what else is in the chat? If you mess up while playing, does it cause you to stop? How should we respond? Someone on a band coming. I would say, okay, so let's start off with the question, what if you mess up during a performance? And I will tell you, I'm so lucky. When I was in college in the Chicago area, I got a job ushering for the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. So 3 nights a week, I would take the train down from Evanston and I would get to go hear the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And at that time, they had this legendary brass section, like some of the best brass players anywhere in the world. And the first trumpet player in particular, his name was Bud Herseth, and he was kind of my hero. And people used to think that Bud Herseth was perfect, but I will tell you, Bud Herseth was not perfect. What Bud Herseth was he was so focused in the moment that when he did make a mistake, like a few seconds later, you would go, wait, did I really hear that? Did he really make a mistake? Because he wasn't reflecting on, he wasn't having this inner dialogue about, ooh, that went terrible, or uh-oh, here comes the next thing. Like, I hope I hit this next thing. He was just right there in the moment of the music as it passed. Now, I say that as if that's an easy thing to achieve. I'm nowhere near and I've been working on this. I mean, I'm 53 years old. So I've been working on this for a long time, trying to be able to be that focused, and I'm nowhere near getting there yet. But I think to work towards kind of quieting that inner dialogue that goes, oh, whatever, insert expletive here, I just messed up. And then, that can snowball downhill and distract you. Or the opposite, anticipating what's coming next and going, oh, I hope I don't miss this. Well, you just pretty much guaranteed you're going to miss it, right? So I would just try to stay in the music as it passes. And almost every type of audition, it's okay to make mistakes. Like, that is not the end of the world. I think a student who comes in and plays musically and expressively, and we hear good fundamentals, I don't care if they make a mistake. Like, it's a human being. I don't want to hear a computer. If I wanted to hear a computer, I wouldn't be at a music school. So I think that to the extent that you can just let it go. Again, I don't mean to trivialize it and make it sound like that's easy, because I struggle with that. I can be a bit of a perfectionist. I'm sure all of us can. And that's got its good side too. That helps us learn to play very accurately and precisely, but perfectionism can be dangerous too. So when you do make a mistake, cut yourself some slack. Again, I think if you can distance yourself and think, what would I say to a friend or somebody I really cared about if they made a mistake? Would I be like, man, you suck? Probably not, right? And yet we say that to ourselves when we make mistakes. So give yourself the same feedback. If your friend made a mistake, you'd be like, well, but your tone was beautiful right before that. I love the way you played that phrase. So give yourself that same feedback. And that doesn't mean give yourself inflated feedback either. That means like, okay, I'm here. I made this mistake. That probably tells me I need to do some more slow practice and some more repetition to get from point A to point B. So I'm going to make a note to come back and work on this slowly some more after this. Somebody asked about auditioning this coming Saturday. I was going to get to this. Oh, whoops. Hold on. My chat just got really big there. I was going to get to this a little later, but I'll go ahead and say it now. I think actually in the week before an audition, the single most important thing you can do is stay healthy. The single most important thing you can do in the week before an audition is get a good night's sleep. Speaking of healthy, eat healthy meals. Don't overplay, especially if you're a brass player. Sometimes if you try to practice really hard in those last few days, you end up bruising, the tissue, and the response actually gets worse. Same with vocalists. Speaking of which, I've been teaching since 9 o'clock this morning and my voice is going. Let me just take a quick drink of water. So in the last week, you can kind of taper off. I like to continue doing very slow practice, literally up until the audition. So even though you've got the piece learned maybe at a faster tempo or the scales learned at a faster tempo, I think it's very beneficial to take some time and just slow it way down to where you can hear all the details and whether your articulation is clean. I think it's good to do that, a little bit of that kind of practice right up until the end. There is a handout that I think was with your invitation, which is like a checklist for audition preparation. And the way that is organized, it's like, I can't remember exactly, but it's like 4 to 6 weeks before, and then, the week before, and then the day of, and then in the audition. And then there's even a section what to do after the audition. So for the person that asked that, take a look at the things in the 1 week before, and that will address that a little bit more. But don't overplay the week before. Just be confident, be smart, practice smart, and maybe if you're prone to anxiety, maybe start doing a little bit of that deep breathing in calm and breathing out worry. Okay. Back to audition stuff. Let's see, where did I leave off? Let's talk about, and I don't want to talk too much about practice, but practice results that get, or practice techniques that get results. Can everybody, can I resend that list? Yes, Olivia Brooks can resend that list to you. I think it should be actually in all of your emails, in whatever email address you use to register for this masterclass. I think the audition preparation checklist either has been emailed or will be emailed by Ms. Brooks to that.
Yep. And then I'll send out another one tomorrow at noon, just in case you missed it.
Okay. So let's talk about how to practice. We talked about how much, like how, if you can start really early and plan ahead. What are some techniques that you can use in your practice to make it very efficient and results oriented? So it's not just like you put on the egg timer and you have to play for X number of minutes or hours every day. How can you get the most out of whatever time you do have? Can everybody just put a quick, what are your ideas for how to get results out of your practice? Like, what are some techniques you can use? What are some things you can do? Buzzing, definitely good. Set a small goal. I love that. Prioritize what you need. Creating an outline, that's good. I'm thinking even more obvious than some of these. Oh gosh, they're going by stuff. Yeah, there. So I saw chunks and I saw slow it down. Isolating the difficulties, so working on something that's giving you trouble. Now, yeah, those are all great things. So I think sometimes there's a tendency, yeah, practice the difficult parts more. There's a tendency to just start at the beginning and play through the piece with all the mistakes so that you're practicing the mistakes over and over and getting those more and more cemented in your brain. I think sometimes I think it's human nature. We don't quite want to admit how slow we should go. Slowing it down is great. Probably slowing it down way more than your instinct tells you is even better. And then I love to use the metronome, not to correct my rhythm, although it's fine for that too. I like to use the metronome to take something that's really slow and speed it up in tiny little increments that are so small that it barely feels any faster. And these days, probably all of you have a metronome app on your phone. If not, get one. My favorite one is Tonal Energy, by the way. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I just love that app. But have a metronome app on your phone and say your ultimate speed that you want to play something is 120 beats per minute. Maybe you slow it down to 60 beats per minute. Maybe that's where you can play it really, really clean and basically as well as it can be played, just slower. And then, depending how much time you have, you might just go up 3 beats per minute. So today I play it at 60 and at 63 and at 66, and then I put it away. And tomorrow I start at 66, 69, 72, maybe 75, put it away, and 75, 78, so on. I find that if you don't use the metronome, when I say speed it up just a little bit, people speed it up like 20 beats per minute. That's not a little bit, that's a lot. And it's probably not going to be as clean, as precise as it was. So yes, somebody said chunking, which means taking that, going right to that section. You know where it is in probably every piece you've ever played in an audition. You know that spot that you miss every time or that you struggle with or it's just harder for you. So go right to it. Don't practice over and over and over the parts that you are already playing really well. Go right to the difficulties, slow them way down. And just like I said, it's human nature that we don't want to slow things down as much as we really should. We also don't want to take as small of a chunk as we really should. Sometimes when I tell students, I want you to practice it in sections, in chunks, they're doing like half a page. Sometimes a chunk is 3 notes, right? Sometimes a chunk is 5 notes or 2 measures, and really slowing it down and getting it clean and going right to the part that really needs it. So also varying the articulations. If it's a tongued passage, to practice slurring it is very beneficial, and vice versa. That's another good technique. If you are preparing for a college admissions audition, think of a few questions in advance, because most auditions, or some auditions, definitely Vandercook auditions, we will give you an opportunity. We will absolutely say, do you have any questions for us? Also think about what questions we might ask you. If you're like me, I am much more comfortable playing my trumpet in front of an audience than I am talking in front of an audience. I, by nature, am extremely shy and introverted. And as a kid, I was that kid that, when you had to give, stand up and give a book report or an oral report, my voice would start shaking, my cheeks would get all flushed, and I just hated it. I've kind of learned to deal with it a little bit better, but it's still much harder for me than the playing part. So if you're at all like that, anticipate what questions they're going to ask you. Like if you audition to be a music education major at Vandercook or anywhere else, we're probably going to ask you why you want to teach music, right? So you can think about it in advance. You might be asked something like, if everything goes as planned, where do you see yourself 5 or 10 years down the road? So you can kind of predict what kinds of questions they might ask you and give a little thought to your answers. We might ask you, is there anyone in your life who inspired you? Any music teachers who inspired you to want to go into this field? So you can think about those things. That doesn't help you for ILMEA or any of those other kinds of auditions. But for college auditions, it's a good idea. We talked about in the week or so leading up to the audition, don't overdo it and try to stay healthy, get plenty of sleep. Oh, I forgot to stay hydrated too. Drink plenty of water. A lot of instruments and voice when you're dehydrated, you know, the buzz just doesn't work as well on trumpet when you're basically all shriveled up because you're dehydrated. So drink water. A couple of words about recorded auditions. And you guys are probably much more tech savvy than I am, but just a couple of things to think about. For a recorded audition or like a live over Zoom type audition, if you can get into a bigger, more resonant space, that's a better place to play it. Now, that's not what we're adjudicating, but you're going to sound better. You're going to feel more confident. So if your band director will let you use the band room or your choir director, that's a good place. If there's an auditorium that you can use, that's a good place. If there's a church, that's a great place if you're a brass player. A big like stone and wood environment, you're going to get a nice sort of reverberation on your sound. So try to play those recorded auditions somewhere other than your carpeted bedroom, if at all possible. I would recommend a decent quality microphone, and you don't necessarily have to buy it. You can often find someone to borrow it from. I know Blue Yeti is a relatively inexpensive one that I've heard several people recommend. The one I'm using is super cheap. It's called, I can't see it without my glasses. I will send it to you in a follow-up. Something sound, I need my reading glasses to read it. But this is like less than $50 microphone, and it's decent quality. So if you can use something other than the mic that's built into your laptop or tablet, that's probably going to sound a lot better. Do some little sound checks where you record yourself just playing a scale or something before you spend a lot of time making the actual recording to make sure that the audio quality is okay. If it's a video audition, pay a little bit of attention to things like lighting and background. Like, I don't want to be superficial or uptight about it. You don't need like a bouquet of flowers behind you. But I have had people audition with like dirty laundry and really poor lighting where I couldn't really see them. And I try not to let that influence me, but we're human, right? Like everything about your audition is gonna make an impression in some way. So maybe try to find a spot with a fairly neutral background and decent lighting if you can. If you're recording, if you can possibly schedule more than one date and time to record, so that there's not that pressure, like I have to get it right this time. And then once you start recording, I would say the first thing you should do is run through everything start to finish once, even if it's not great. Get it in the can, as we used to say. So get like a take all the way through. And if nothing else, that just relieves some of the pressure on you, right? At least you've got it down once, and you can use that if you don't get a better one. And then I would do that several more times. And then don't delete anything yet, right? Just save several takes all the way through. None of them are going to be perfect. I'm sorry to break it to you, but you are not perfect. I have yet to play a perfect audition. I have yet to hear a perfect audition. It doesn't have to be perfect. But I think the trap is that if you're a little bit of a perfectionist, you start recording, you make a mistake, you stop playing. You start again, and then you start getting frustrated and you start getting worried that you're never going to make it all the way through, and then you spiral downhill. So first, before you do anything else, play it all the way through, even if it's not great, so that you have at least one take. And I would do that at least a week before it's due, and then come back in a few days if you can and do it again. I would also recommend for a lot of things actually submitting the recording at least a day or two before the final due date, because I have had it happen where there's some glitch and I've spent all this time getting my recording done, And then when I actually go to submit it, there's some sort of technical glitch with their website or somebody's Wi-Fi or whatever. And that's very stressful too. So I would go ahead and submit it before it's due. I'm going to run out of time here. What else? For live auditions, just some common sense things to reduce your own stress. Make sure you arrive early so that you can find parking and you don't have to run around. Have a sensible warm up before your audition, but don't overplay. Let's see. I didn't even talk about sight reading. I will tell you that for college auditions at Vandercook, the vast majority of people, I often walk with them after their audition over to the admissions office and I say, how did it go? And they always say, oh my gosh, that wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. That was actually enjoyable, talking with us. We are almost out of time. By all means, I'm going to put my email in the chat now. I'm sure you probably have it, but I will put it here again. Wait, how do I do everybody? Everyone. L. Schuman at vandercook.edu. I guess I would leave you with this little piece of advice that is the most important piece of advice anyone has ever given me. And it's going to sound really negative, but I'm going to say it anyway. And that is this. The most important moments in your musical endeavors, your musical career, and your life will be your failures. And when someone said that to me, I was like, well, that's kind of negative. But she went on to say, anyone can handle success, right? When you play that great audition and you get first chair or you go to Allstate or you get into the college of your dreams, that doesn't take a strong person. Anybody can handle that. But it's those disappointments and those performances that don't go the way that you want them to, which we all have. If you can be the kind of musician that takes that experience and turns it into the fuel that drives you to work that much harder, be that much more determined. And I say this as a person with a doctorate, with the highest possible honors from a school I did not get into as a freshman. I didn't get waitlisted. I didn't get anything. You're not Eastman material. Thank you. And 15 years later, I walked across that stage with a doctorate. So I walk the walk in terms of this. If you can take those disappointments when they come in whatever part of your life and turn those into something positive that fuels you to work even harder and be even more determined, hopefully that will serve you well. So good luck to all of you after that sort of serious note at the end. Enjoy your auditions. Make some great music out there. I hope I will see some of you auditioning at Vandercook or wherever. And by all means, don't be shy about getting in touch, sending me an email, coming on in to Vandercook to meet with me. I'd love to talk with all of you. So best of luck on all your auditions. Best of skill and preparation on all your auditions. Take care.